I'd like to call the General Plan Working Group Committee to order for Thursday, April 4th, 2024. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Walt Stanish.
Here.
Vice Chair Lisa Hetchman.
Here.
Edwin Okamura.
Here.
Tom Donnelly.
Here.
Emmett Holtzlander.
Here.
Judith Adamson.
Here.
Art Darden.
Here.
Alternate Rick Dolk.
Here.
At large Lisa Duke. Here.
Can you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? All right, next is public comment. Anybody that would like to speak on anything not on the agenda can come up and speak for 5 minutes. Anybody online?
There are no public comment online.
Okay, I'll close public comment and we'll move on to action items. Approval of the March 7th, 2024 minutes. Anybody have any comments? And if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thanks, Tom. Second?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second?
Chairman Walt Stanish.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lisa Hetchman.
Yes.
Edwin Okamura.
Yes.
Tom Donnelly.
Yes.
Emmett Holtzlander.
Yes.
Judith Adamson.
Yes.
Art Darden.
Yes.
All right. Now we're on to number 4, discussion items, 4.1, administrative draft of the general plan.
Chair, members of the General Plan Working Group, good evening. Just one moment, I'm going to pull up the presentation. It's a little different than our usual setup. Okay, great. Good evening, Paul Yunker, consultant on the general plan team. Meeting 24 this evening, and we are getting on the home stretch. As the working group is aware, we've circulated the binder of the first complete administrative draft, and so this evening we have 2 things to go over. First is to talk about the process. Where are we at now and where are we going? We have some dates we want to go over with the working group, make sure they're going to meet your expectations. Then we want to begin to get your comments this evening on the administrative draft. You've had the document for about a week, and of course, it's an important and significant document. So we're not anticipating that this group's review is done this evening, but we want to talk about when you will feel comfortable concluding that review. So that's what we have on the agenda this evening. First off, I'd like to go over the process. So where are we at and where are we going? What you have is an administrative draft general plan. So this is the first time you've seen all of the elements in one binder with the ability to turn pages, go back and forth. We think of this as being a 90% draft. All of the elements have been reviewed previously. Your comments should be accurately reflected. There are some additions that staff has made that you had not reviewed, and so those were shown in a strikeout text, the sections that were new. But we're getting pretty close. So what we're looking for is review for completeness. Have we got everything in the plan that needs to be in it? Have we reflected correctly what the general plan working group expected? And is everything consistent between elements? And that last one is a legal requirement. The general plan has to be internally consistent. So we want to be looking through all of those lenses. Once we have your input and understanding that there is some additional work that's going on, I'll talk about in a second, then we want to go to the next stage, which is a public review draft. That public review draft is now going to about a 95% level. It's getting pretty close to what we anticipate will be adopted. It'll be fully formatted. It will look like the ultimate general plan with images and really pretty close to what we expect will be adopted. That document gets shared with the community, and after additional community input, we'll finalize that, and then we'll be heading to planning commission and city council hearings. So we're at the admin draft. We have one more process document, the public review draft, and then we move into the adoption draft. Everything can change up until the time the council gavel votes. Okay, nothing is set until council's had their final review and has said, this is it. Until then, we're just getting closer and closer to the final product. Now, for this evening, we will take any input that can be offered. I will say that Nick and I have worked very hard to quickly take notes when we get comments like the fourth word in the third paragraph is section such and such. Little bit hard, but if you have typos and can give them to us in any form, either written in your binder, just hand us the whole binder, we'll take it, we'll give it back to you. Give it to us in email, on digital copy, whatever. And what I'm talking about is the typos, the non-substantive changes. Something is said a street and should be a drive. Those types of corrections that you really don't feel like you have to get anybody else's agreement. They're just errors that need to be corrected. We would like to focus on any substantive changes. So if there's things that you want to talk about and share with the other general plan working group members to make sure they're in agreement, something didn't look right, you think it could be better in this way. So we could have the input of the whole group to say, yeah, that's a good change. That's what we really hope to get this evening. We're going to respond to questions as best we can this evening, but it's quite possible you'll ask something that we'll need to follow up on. We'll figure out how we'll do that at the end of the meeting, whether that will be handled just via email communications or directly with a person who raises a question, how we want to proceed. And that'll really depend on what all you've found. And then really our goal, and you'll hear this date a little bit later, but we're hoping that we can have the working group's input by April 19th. So that's a little more than 2 weeks. You've had the binder for about a week. And we want to kind of go through this process this evening and see if towards the end of the meeting, you're feeling like that April 19th is reasonable. But that will lead to some other dates that we're going to be planning on. So that's the process. There are some areas where technical work is still being completed. The EIR consultant is still working on describing the biological resources within Rio Vista. So we're going to want to add information about that once it's available. There's some mapping that's related to noise and noise contours, especially for future. We have our existing noise contours, but we also do projections of future noise, and those are not yet completed. So we want to add those in. Additionally, staff really has to go through the same process you are, which is turning pages. When I say staff, I'm not talking about Nick and myself. It's Robin Bore, our community development director, Cecil, city engineer, the city manager. Just, we need to make sure that they can deliver on the commitments that are being outlined. So they have to be, participants and buying in on this process just as much as you as decision makers are. So once we have all of that, that's when we will swing into completing the public review draft. And that process of taking it into the fully formatted version, it takes a few weeks. So it doesn't happen overnight because these are 9 chapters. Each of them needs to be formatted, images, maps, everything added in. And then we have to go through and review it and make sure it's all lining up right. So there's a little bit of work there, but that is where we're heading. So I've already mentioned the dates. If we can have your comments by the 19th, that allows us to, with confidence, produce a public draft by May 15th. And that would be out on the streets about 3 weeks before our tentative town hall, which would be June 6th. So that's the schedule that staff's envisioning right now, but we do want to confirm that's meeting your expectations. We're thinking about June 6th as a Thursday. They've been successful in getting people at both the economic development meetings and general plan meetings. So Thursday and afternoon, evening kind of scenario seems to work. And so that led us to June 6th.
Is that the only date that you're doing anything like that?
We're anticipating one day where we'll do 2 meetings.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after that, the next step is hearings. We'll be accepting public comments. And so it may be that folks will learn about the general plan at June 6th, and then providing us input and feedback. So we'll continue to refine and finalize, but the next official stop after that town hall would be planning commission hearings to consider adoption. So that is, that's how staff sees it rolling out. I will say that the planning commission and city council hearings are more, the date is more dependent on the EIR being finalized, being circulated for its 45-day public comment period. And then any comments that are received, the EIR consultant has to respond to them. So we are not even projecting a date for the planning commission city council hearings. What we're trying to do is look to getting to that nearly complete draft general plan that's appropriate for the planning commission city council to consider.
Are you thinking of having a joint meeting for the hearings or separate?
Oh, separate.
Separate, okay.
I mean, if the council and planning commission see benefit, we could have an informal meeting, but the actual adoption hearings would be as the planning commission and then as the city
Okay.
council. So the questions are, do you feel that the 19th is a reasonable date for the working group to complete comments? If so, is there any thoughts about the June 6th date? That's a Thursday, which we, again, have tended to see as good. We were afraid that if we got later in June, we would start to run into vacations and maybe lose people. So that was part of the thought process there. And then is the 15th gives the community about 3 weeks to look at it. It's a big and important document, but candidly, there's nothing you can do in 6 months that you can't do in 3 weeks. So you're either gonna do it or you're not, I think is really what it comes down to. So I think 3 weeks is reasonable, but that's really something we'd like to hear. So those are the 3 questions to the working group.
I had a question about the process. Does this have to be reviewed at the county level by like LAFCO or anything like that, or is this?
No, LAFCO has no say over our general plan. We will circulate it, but it's, no, there's no formal review. There is a couple of steps that we have to go through. We have to circulate to U.S. Mines and Geology, it's state, not U.S. And we also have to, there's a couple other stops that we have to go through. Oh, the Delta Commission has to verify that we're consistent with the Delta plan. So we have a couple of steps that will happen in the background that you all won't have to be involved in.
Judith, go ahead.
Yes. How does the public actually see the draft? Do you put notebooks out on tables, or what are the mechanics of that?
Probably digitally. It will be made
Oh.
available on the city website, and we'll reactivate the general plan website as well. But I don't anticipate that we'll be producing a lot of copies of the public review draft. We could, and we can make them available at City Hall, and library would be an option if folks wanted to go and look at a paper copy, but I don't anticipate we'll produce more than a dozen or so documents. We're not going to produce hundreds of the public draft.
There will be one at City Hall though, outside on, right across from the Public Works window for review.
And libraries are another place it's common to make them available. So yes, physical copies would be available in that format, but we wouldn't broadly distribute paper copies.
I would probably suggest at least a hard copy being put at the clubhouse or the library at Trinity. And I'm sure Liberty has some, they have their community center, which would pick up both Liberty and the older community there.
Actually, the Liberty,
Summit at Liberty, I think it is.
yeah, the HOA, that building is closed unless you're a member. So, the all-age community really has nothing out there where they could go to.
Oh,
Would it make sense for us to print these on demand, saying somebody wanted one, they could email KB or something and say, I want a printed copy, and maybe go that way? Because Lisa made a good point. As soon as they put it in the clubhouse, it's gonna be gone. Somebody will take it and then there won't be one anyways, unless you glue it to the table or something. I don't know if I could do that, but so maybe, request on demand or something. I would like a paper copy personally to refer to from time to time.
Okay, I think Christine, will we be producing these in-house? Yeah,
Well,
the public draft.
but the final copies, I guess is more what I'm talking about.
Oh, are you talking
final
about the
draft.
adopted general plan
Yes.
after it's completed?
Right.
We'll certainly make those available. It's common to charge for them, just the cost of
Sure,
reproduction.
Of course.
I can tell you in most cities I've worked, they farm that out to a reproduction house. And the cost winds up being, in the range of $50. They're not inexpensive. That's why we don't want to print
Hmm.
lots and lots of them because of the cost.
You are talking, but we can't hear you.
Talking to yourself.
Sorry about that. I was just gonna say that, when we had the housing element out on the, web for them to review, I don't think people actually were engaged and went on and looked at it, because then when we were talking about it being approved, they said, well, we didn't even know it was available. So I don't know how you engage the public for them to go online.
It's very hard to read a document that's this large,
Yeah.
that's in a
Yes.
PDF format. But I mean, I might suggest you did nice binders for all of us. We certainly don't need binders. And you just print them on, and you don't need tabs either, just table of contents, the
And
content.
Print
And
them
we
double
might.
sided.
And I might recommend as well, there's a printer that's been printing some brochures. They could print all this for, I'm sure for 10,000 easily.
I wonder who would that be?
Yeah, double-sided.
We would be printing these in-house. It
Big
would be
type.
me.
Big type.
Okay, so, it's sounding like you want to make sure that there's enough paper copies available that, certainly cover the venues, the 4 venues we talked about, this group and senior staff. So we'll be doing a run of maybe 25 initially, and then we'll just gauge the response. If we need to print more, we'll print more.
Yeah.
Okay,
Draft.
yeah.
Draft.
What
What kind of
about
final
the
draft?
June 6th meeting?
Yes.
Are you envisioning that, the town hall meeting having a breakout to the different elements? So if somebody wants to talk about the housing element or any of the elements, they want to talk about a specific one where somebody will be at a table with that particular element, or
We are going to talk about that town hall in just as soon as we get through the comments. So as usual, you're ahead of your time, Art. But yeah, we're going to have we're anticipating breakouts, but we want to talk with the whole group to see what you think will be the right format. So we'll be getting to that as soon as we get through comments on.
I'm not sure. I'm just looking at the school calendar. June 6th is the first minimum day, 2 days before school is out for the summer. So I don't know if that automatically means that we will lose parents that night, because that's a change in schedule. So I don't know if moving it, I don't know. I don't have kids, so I don't know what ends up happening, but that's the first minimum day according, so which must mean that graduation's right in there. Or promotions from middle school, et cetera. So
So that's why we talk about these dates with you is so we need to check with the school district to see if there's graduations or promotions on June. 6th.
yeah, it says June 7th is the last day, so I'm gonna. Last year, the last day of school had the high school graduation. The night before was like Riverview's promotion. So, and goodness knows when kindergarten promotion happens, so.
Yeah, and certainly if you want children to participate in it, they're not going to at
Right.
that point.
No.
Yeah. I don't want to rub it in, but I'll be in Copenhagen.
Well, there we go.
That's okay. We'll do the meeting by Zoom. So we will need to check the 6th to make sure we don't have a conflict with school district schedules. Is that if it's a middle school promotion, is that a no-go on the 6th? Would that be enough for us to push it a week later? Would that be appropriate? What do we do?
That would be my feeling, just because I think if you automatically put it on a day where there is that type of celebration and focus, it's not gonna be us. And so if you are wanting and soliciting their input, to literally put it on another day would be helpful.
And going a week later would,
I think it's
Okay.
fine, but
okay. General thought, I mean, we were a little bit concerned. We knew we were getting right at the end of the school year,
Sure.
so we didn't know if folks would immediately start going off on vacation. Let us look into the school district, make sure whether there even is a conflict, and we'll go from there. Aside from the potential issues of promotions, graduations, any other thoughts, the time frame? I didn't see anybody concerned about providing comments by the 19th. And the 3 weeks is acceptable lead time for the community to review. Okay, then let us look at the what's going on with the school district. This schedule does have a little bit of flexibility built into it. So if we even needed to bring that June 6th meeting forward, we might be able to do that. So just have to see how that all is going to lay out. Great, so that is the kind of the preamble to the discussion. Tonight's main event is to get your initial thoughts on the administrative draft. As mentioned, we're looking for big concerns, particularly if anything's missing or if anything's not reading with the right tone. We may be able to get through all of your comments, but I want to also be respectful that if everybody has an hour's worth of comments, we are not going to stay until 11. So,
Just a quick follow-up on the 19th deadline. Is that by close of business that day or? And
now
how
you're
do you
talking like
want,
a consultant.
do you want us to turn these into somebody?
I'll be here
or
till
do-
probably 6:30, so if you
Okay.
can make it by 6:30.
Okay, so that's not a Friday off day,
I-
the 19th.
Is it a Wednesday?
I think it's it.
Construction project manager, so that's.
It is a Friday, but it's a Friday, I'll be here.
Okay.
I'll be here till like 5.
Okay, so we turned in to City Hall by Friday. That would be great. If you can get them in earlier, we can just start getting the revisions made. So you don't all have to wait until the 19th.
If we're done with it, we can give it to you tonight.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That would be fabulous. So, Chair, I would just open this up for discussion. We're available to answer questions or just take thoughts and guidance.
Okay. Lisa has as many tabs probably as I do, so go ahead, Lisa.
well, thank you. In the very first section, as part of the introduction, I'm I'm wondering if there just needs to be a comment that talks about the average age of the residents in Rio Vista, being 64. As of the writing of this document, because it comes up in almost every element as either a contextual piece or a concern piece, or talking about how Rio Vista had developed, or why maybe a vehicle is a preferred mode of transport, et cetera. And so I was wondering, that was one of my main pieces of just being able to say, is there a way to get a sentence in that introductory that just talks about age restriction and how we got there?
I think it makes a lot of sense. It is,
And
it is an unusual aspect of Rio Vista specifically.
it is, particularly when you compare us to pretty much every other town around us. So I'll give you my binder tonight. I have a sentence that I think works, and you can play with that.
Great.
I have no idea what page it is because it's not numbered.
So could we make sure all the pages get numbered?
Yeah,
Okay.
I apologize. I thought they were.
From
so-
one end to the other, I
Yeah.
think. They're numbered like by section, but they're not numbered from point A to point B.
Right.
Okay, are we still in introduction?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages in. At the top of the page, it says long-term perspective. And I'm about
Got it?
5 or 6 pages in, okay? In that particular paragraph in the second sentence on the right-hand side, it really was a question about where it states, and future conditions and establish long-term policy to achieve those objectives. My question was about, does it actually establish the policy, or is that a council that has to take action to get to policy, or staff to coordinate a code? And so does it actually just provide a long-term guidance to reach the objectives of the general plan? I didn't know if establishing policy would get anybody in any trouble, and I just didn't know if that's actually what this does, or if it just provides guidance to future decisions.
It does establish policy.
Okay.
Yeah, this is your highest policy document in the city, and the adoption of this by the city council establishes the most foundational policies in the city.
Right? Well, then no change needed there. Let's see, in chapter 2. I just made another note on that where 2.1 is community character. My note was how to include age again as a factor, as part of the character of this town. And then I did lift some things right off of, in light of the council's conversation around branding and trying to be consistent. I did lift some sentences right off of the city's website in the description of Rio Vista. So it just changed that introductory paragraph to include basic things like Rio Vista, in quotes, the gateway to the Delta on the edge of the Sacramento River. And that's right off of the city website.
Great, and so that will be additional descriptors in the introduction.
Yeah.
Great.
On page 4 of that chapter 2 section. In section 2.7, Parks and Recs is separate from public / quasi-public, but it's not listed among these bullets here that talk about what the existing land uses in Rio Vista are going to be. Nor was urban reserve included here. So for me, that was a incongruity.
We drafted a new urban reserve section. It isn't in. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did, but in 2.3 on
Oh,
page 4.
I'm sorry, I jumped back into 2.7.
That's all right. Where it just does a bulleted list and calls it existing land uses. So I didn't know if it was like existing prior to this general plan moving forward, because as of 2024 include, or if it meant here's
So
where we're headed and
This is,
what
this
we
is a
decided.
little confusing. There's existing land uses
Mhm.
and there's general plan land use designations. And they're not the same thing.
Okay.
So how is the land used? So that's where, certainly, here I would, public, quasi-public includes park and recreation, though when you get to the map, it's a mapped thing. I would stand by that. We can call it out, but it's one of all of the public functions like schools, parks, fire station, city hall. Urban reserve is not a use. And so that's why I really don't think that one, we could add parks and recreation if you wanted to differentiate it from public, quasi-public. We differentiated on the map because there's benefit in seeing it broken out for its distribution as parks throughout the community. That's good information to see how you're serving your community. And if we lumped all of those as one color, we'd lose the identity of a school versus a park.
Totally fair. And I think in 2.7, where it got me was you have on page 12, public, quasi-public as a paragraph with a FAR designation at the bottom there. And then on the next page on 13, Parks and Rec is called out separately. So for me, I went then back to that list and went, okay, now I don't get it. But I think your explanation, I understand what you just told me,
Okay,
but as I read the document, I was like, okay, well then why is,
so how do we make that?
oh, I don't have that solution.
Um,
I don't know if it was just to add,
How about if we, in the introduction on page 4, existing land uses, just make the clarification that these
That
are
would be helpful.
uses as differentiated from general plan land use designation.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Okay,
On page 11, in the north waterfront section,
okay,
in the second paragraph, third line of that paragraph on the right-hand side, it talks about that large format retail shopping centers, et cetera. And I guess I missed it, but in all of my notes around how we talked about the north waterfront, I didn't have anything down that was large format retail or shopping centers. So I'm looking for maybe a definition of that. My immediate head went to big box Walmart on our waterfront, which was completely antithetical to everything I thought we were working towards.
great catch.
Okay.
I don't think large format retail belongs there. I think a Home Depot, whatever, that's, no, that's not what we're talking about.
Okay.
No, so what we are talking about, and maybe shopping centers isn't quite catching it. I think it's a more fine-grained retail, commercial, mixed-use environment, but
Maybe specialty
It's-
retailers or something
That's
like
what,
that.
that's.
I
what
think
like.
that catches it much better.
I like that.
Um,
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, Lisa, but while we're on this page, we talk about the north waterfront and you describe where it is. But when we get to south waterfront, you don't tell us really where it is. You tell north waterfront is across Highway 12 to Airport Road, but in the south waterfront, I don't know where we are.
So,
I mean, I know where we are, but somebody reading this may not know the
Yeah,
location of it.
so explain location.
Yeah. Sorry.
No worries.
I think I need to do a little audible here. Because the fact that we're in a section and we were able to address it right there, maybe we need to be just kind of going through this, and as anybody has a comment in an area. So
Okay.
we can just, because I think we'll get through it more efficiently that way, rather than going one person front to back and next person front to back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So right now, we're sitting 10 pages into land use. Can we, can we do a little, just maybe next comment, let me know when you have something?
Do you want to
I
go
think-
back and cover it all?
I think we're gonna have to.
And you wanna
before we
do
get
that
any
now?
further. So starting with the introduction,
Okay,
Lisa had brought
Going
up
all the way
the
Yeah.
issues of age restricted. Let's just get introduction out of the way.
okay.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything on the introduction part here?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've somewhat of a general comment, and that is we, in a number of documents, and certainly all throughout this, we use numbers like 10,553 people. I've heard various numbers thrown out. I just figure, are we going to have an endnotes or a footnote section for this document?
We talked about it early on, having like a glossary or something in the back with all these.
Because
Yeah.
we throw out a bunch of numbers. There's another place
Yeah.
where we talk about 20% of traffic coming off, and I remember the number being different. So it seems we should have attribution. We should go back to,
Different than the sign.
Right.
right. Yeah, I mean, if it's just footnoted, we know it's probably from our census data, right? But that's just a general comment.
So,
And then,
I think the comment was to source the information.
Yes.
Contribute to the source.
correct.
Okay.
And then consistency wise, as you're going through the document, we use, you speak of Trilogy and the Liberty projects, but you're speaking of them as the 55 plus projects. And so it's inconsistent most of the time, and I think it should be Trilogy and the Summit projects,
Yeah.
Summit Liberty projects
And it's throughout this whole
throughout the
thing.
document.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also.
And it is Summit at Liberty. Summit at Liberty is the correct reference.
For this
the
55
agency.
plus. And then also, and this again comes back to just referencing, we all know who California Forever is, but when you're reading the introduction and later on in the document, we talk about California Forever. But if you're reading it from start to finish, you come across California Forever and there's no note as to who they are. And so there should be a way of referencing that.
I was gonna bring that up. I still have a point of contention of us referring to them as California Forever
Yes.
through the whole thing.
And that's another comment too.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that name will probably not be used a year from now. And I think if we're trying to make this a timeless document, you know, I think we should reference Flannery and California Forever as a name, but I think we should have a generic name throughout instead of referring to them as California Forever. That's my opinion.
Well, I think you did a good job of saying it's California Forever project in some locations, but Flannery is the landholder from what I understand. So at least that should be differentiated. Because when you talk about the project, that's California Forever, but the landowner, I believe, is under Flannery. And so we need to be careful on our usage.
As I understand it, California Forever owns Flannery, but I'm not entirely sure of
I
that.
think it
I
may be
thought it
the
was
other
the
way around.
opposite.
The other way
I think
around.
it's Flannery LLC.
Yes,
Is it?
and the project is California Forever.
So
Which I don't think.
So for instance, if they were to build in here, it
I-
wouldn't be California Forever.
how would you like to refer to them?
Well, we should just double check that Flannery is the holding company and California Forever is the project. I believe that's what it is. I think that's what we all think.
Would it,
And so,
yeah, I have also a bigger picture area of, we know when we talk about the Esperson property, we talk about this but if you're reading this 10 or 20 years from now,
And that's my point. So my
Yeah.
point, you know, for instance, I'll give you an example. In 1999, Trilogy was called the Marks Ranch Project. In 2003, it was called the Somerset Community. If you go into Trilogy right now, most people have never heard of those names, right? And so in 15 years from now, California Forever all over this document, everybody's gonna go, what the heck is this? Because that name isn't gonna be used.
So what name can we use? I don't,
Rick, if you put a definition up front
Right.
in the intro and describe what is going on and then why we use the California Forever project throughout, does that get you does that answer it for you? So then there's a reference of saying it's Flannery LLC, but
Yeah.
here's how we're going to use it in this
Well, and
document.
that's what I wanted to ask you guys, because either we do that or we call them the Land Acquisition Group, otherwise known as Flannery or California Forever. Whichever people prefer. I think it's gonna be confusing to call them California Forever through the whole thing. 10 years from now, it'll be confusing.
You refer to it in one point under guiding principles, 1.2 as competitive land ownership as part of California Forever. So being that we don't know what the name's ever gonna end up being, should we just use competitive land ownership? And then reference
How about
Flannery and
Solano Newtown? I mean,
Flanneryville? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think that is a project. And so it should be
Yeah.
named as it is, but we should just make sure that we define it at some point in the end notes of this document. So people say, oh, okay, now I get it. But the initial phrasing of it should maybe be more generic, the landowner in parentheses, California Forever project. And
it
then you
sounds like
define-
that's something we would want in the introduction. Just get it established
Yeah,
up
just
front.
get it out of the
so-
way, maybe.
Yeah. And to me, that, I agree, California Forever is probably just a disposable name, but it's the only quick way I know how to identify.
Well,
it.
maybe that's exactly it. So initially you define it and you say California Forever, and then to be referenced as Solano County landowner, whatever you want to call it. And then from there forward, you don't refer to them as California Forever, but the,
I kind of like that.
XYZ.
I think the project name is gonna change once they
Yeah.
start building. I don't think it's a short-lived name, but
yeah, I mean, they'll start selling off pieces and whatnot.
Is there a detriment to, and I don't know if we can, so it's a can question to just as part of the, maybe an appendix that you're talking about, include their current map location of what
Mhm.
they're saying their project is, so that
Yes.
you can at least reference how close it is to Rio Vista, the impact for any sort of transportation, what it looks like on Highway 12, what land got used in what way
I
in
think
the
that'd be
future
valid.
for.
I think
There's
that'd be
that
valid.
aerial.
Yes. Yeah, because otherwise it is confusing.
Sure.
Well,
But
but
we're all,
more generally, I think we've got the issue with Graham Ranch, Esperson, all of those are things we use, we talk about commonly, we know where they are. But, you know, they're gonna be something else 10 years from now.
Yep.
And if we included a map saying that this area is commonly called at this point, then at least they can look at a map and say, oh, that's when I see this, that's what it means.
I'm still not sure on whether we're calling California Forever, Solano Town, or the landholder who shall remain nameless.
As far as
I-
the map, we have a map that we had a map for a long time that had orange areas that they own. Remember that?
The ownership map, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and so, I mean, that's what they, sort of an aerial view of their, that might, in the
Yeah.
winter, might not even.
Right, and that particular project may go away.
Right.
So I think it's, I guess, an answer to your question, my opinion is that you start out by naming it by the name of the project, because that's what we're talking about, but then put in parentheses whatever that other name is gonna be that we want to call it. That I don't have the answer to. But the major landholder, whatever that's gonna be, and then from that point forward, refer to them as that. And that way we don't get stuck on the project name. We get, it's that landowner, that big landowner. And then there's the map that Lisa's suggesting, both Lisas are suggesting that show all the land acquisition that they have done, and then people understand it.
I just don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
Because I think
Big dam.
Nobody
it gets,
Yeah.
Billionaire people.
Silicon Valley.
I'm here.
Yeah,
I'll
mean-
create an acronym from Silicon Valley
But they-
Investment Group.
I think the group is saying they might
that
sell.
Acquired land and
Sell off
it'd be a really
pieces.
long acronym. Joking aside, I worry that if we're trying to avoid confusion, if we start getting nebulous with things like Solano County landowner, I'm afraid that we introduce more confusion than, I mean, at this time, candidly, for a long time, everybody's gonna know what California Forever was. It has made an imprint on this community in this county. So the project may change, the project may not be approved. You know, of course, the voters may reject it, so.
I think I would actually prefer the name Flannery.
I
over
would too.
California Forever.
I would too.
Okay,
Yeah.
Because
I'm fine if we can just go with something that's very identifiable and. Yeah, Flannery has identity.
I
Yeah,
guess
it's
it
a
all
real
depends on who you're talking to,
How so?
what somebody might call this project.
Flannery's not a project though. so-
No, I realize
Yeah,
that, but
Flannery's,
California.
Flannery's
Forever
the
is.
greater ownership. California Forever is a piece of the project that's currently being proposed and subject to this election upcoming. But Flannery is the ownership group that encompasses.
Right.
Well, to us, we know it, that's how we know it, and I think that's the point going for
Right.
further, yeah. Because it was also called Del Rey Hills too.
As long as we have an appendix and there's
Yeah.
a map and it shows the name and associated with the property, I think we're okay.
Yes, the name that we are referencing in this document, attached to a map so that 10
Yes.
years from now, everybody knows.
And when your
the
5
name
minutes
is-
are up.
Oh, I have one more. Sorry, we're on introduction still. Just a small thing. We talked about goals, policies and implementation programs. I'm just gonna suggest get rid of implementation because throughout the whole document, we talk about programs. We don't talk about implementation programs. In the very last, second to last page of the introduction.
Okay, just go with programs.
Yeah, that was it.
I've got a
My
little-
5 minutes is up.
I've got a little one that I keep coming back to over the months. And when we talk about mobility in the introduction and throughout, we like to say bicycles and we say vehicles. And I really would like that to continue an emphasis on carts, on golf carts. Since we are an older community, we want people to have the ability to move around our entire community from north to south, east to west. And we talk about bicycle paths and, let's make them cart paths too.
Yeah. And so I concur. I actually had that. I thought we're still on the introduction, but if we're jumping to mobility.
Well,
No,
We may-
we're really not.
it's right there in the introduction.
We're not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll shut up. When we get to mobility, I'll talk again.
Yeah, really, since I was interrupted originally and I was on a roll and we're going circling back. Yeah.
We'll be here at 11, no problem.
Should we start the coffee?
Anybody else
Um,
have anything on the first chapter?
Just where Edwin was bringing up some formatting things, there is inconsistent formatting throughout this. If you were talking about the figures, sometimes there's a dash used, sometimes there's a period used. Sometimes the title is bolded, sometimes the
Mhm.
title is not. So sometimes you're using an Oxford comma when you're talking in the narrative, sometimes you don't. Highway 12 is pretty much Highway 12 throughout, except for like in 2 areas where it's SR 12. So it just needs to be consistent throughout the document. However, the decision is made to indicate those pieces.
Need to run it through good AI.
Yeah. Something just to catch them.
Chair, do you want to see if there's any public comment since we have 2 people in the audience?
Do we have any public comment? Judith, you have anything to add?
No, I don't.
Okay, anybody else? I have one more thing. The very first page we get to is chapter 1 introduction, and it starts talking about Rio Vista right away. I would personally like to see item 1.3, what is a general plan? The first thing that we come to, because that's what's going to describe what this whole binder's about. Do you guys agree? Good point. I mean, it was a little too far in for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's 1.3. Unfortunately, there's no page number, but and one more thing while we're being nitpicky. The second to the last page, where it says public facilities and service uses. And it's not just here, but in a lot of these, pages describing a lot of things, there's way too many ands in this for me. It goes and, I mean, and it's all in one sentence. Can we either put commas in there and use one and as opposed to 3 or 4? It's just,
Give me an example, what page?
it was the second to the last page on the introduction.
Yep.
Under public facilities and services, it's kind of a rambling sentence, but the third line down says and education and establishes and public services. I know what you're saying, but it's just too many ands. And there's a couple
Yeah.
other spots with a lot of ands too. I mean,
So kind of a run-on sentence.
exactly. So where that second and is, it says and establishes. How about while establishing? That would get rid of one of the ands.
So just put a period and say it.
Yeah, and then start another sentence or something, but yeah. That was just
Okay.
a suggestion I wrote there. Anybody else have anything on the first chapter? Okay, Lisa, chapter 2. You're up.
I
We were
think-
about 10 pages in, so I don't know if anybody else. has
I don't know if
anything.
she had anything else
Let me
because she
see.
got cut off. So.
think.
I have a quick question. So
All of my
rec-
big ones are taken, sorry, all of my big
recently
ones.
I looked at,
Okay. Go ahead.
I was looking at the census from the last, and I thought it said the average population is 50. And where is the 64? I know we've talked about 64 before, but is that established?
It's on the sign that comes into town. That's where I got the number from.
Says the average age.
Oh, average age, I'm sorry. I thought it was, I thought you were saying hard to publish.
It's from the census and it's cited in housing element too.
Great. That would make sense.
I know that there was a question and I looked it up and did confirm that that's consistent with the housing
Thank you.
element.
You have anything else on this section, Lisa? Okay. Anybody down there? Art?
I do.
Uh,
Oh, sorry.
I just, very small thing too, on the maps, that border that show me city boundaries, sphere of influence and so on. Can we make them different colors instead of a different shade of blue or something?
Yeah, that
Now
one
I know
purple's
that.
hard to see.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's because you're 64 plus.
Oh.
thank
that
you.
would-
You'll get there soon.
And when your 5 minutes are up.
I noticed that on that one figure, 1.2 planning down.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a number of places throughout there.
Yeah, couldn't tell what
Yes.
blue, purple, and black.
Emmett, do you have anything? No. Go ahead, Emmett.
Okay, this is minor, that in the introduction, second paragraph, we talk about goals and policies, and then probably around 5 lines down, it says, together, these policies help define. I think you just can say, together, these will help define. Because I think you meant
Um,
goals and policies,
Page again?
the very first page. Second paragraph,
Together,
yeah, halfway down, together, these, it says policies, but I think you mean policies and goals and policies.
Got it.
On this page 3, it's actually numbered in your red line. Halfway down the first paragraph, it says, and I don't know if there's a reason why you do this, but it says this includes 2 large and undeveloped properties in the city. And then the one that we keep, that's missing is our 62 acre city property.
Yep. And
Okay.
62 acres is a significant project.
See, I didn't need my 5 minutes. I'm done.
Okay, Tom, anything? Rick, you have anything? Okay. I have a couple things. Also on page 3, under the California Forever, where it starts the red, it starts, and it talks about Solano County ballot. Can we add Solano County ballot initiative to that? And then on page 5, the very last sentence, it says Rio Vista's downtown area generally bounded by Logan Street, North and Front Street. I don't know where North Street is.
North and south.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're missing the south.
That's what it would.
That's what it is. Okay. Because I'm like, I don't know where North is.
You know, going back to your part about the initiative on that one page, it does say about the next sentence, while the ballot measure. Call it initiative, or you want to call it a ballot?
So long as they're consistent,
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Walt, while you're searching there, can I jump in with something?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
On page 9, where it says residential estate, you're describing the land use designation.
Mm-hmm.
And its first sentence says, residential estate designation been applied to a large portion of the Esperson property. I thought that was a discussion one night, and I thought we were getting rid of
Well, I don't think it's a large portion anymore. It
That's-
is still,
yes,
it
we
is applied
were-
to some, but we did reduce it in
we were
size.
reducing
So I think just applied to a portion.
portion of, yeah.
Got it?
On page 14, 2.8, the very first one, LU-1, it says high quality place for residents. How about high desirable? Instead of high quality, I mean,
Highly desirable?
yeah, but high quality, I don't know what you meant really by that. And then for LU-6, can we add restaurants and or dining establishments to, you've got retail services,
Yeah, I know that we picked that up somewhere else.
and we didn't, it didn't get carried
May have been
over.
economic development.
Okay,
Restaurant, so employment. Restaurant,
I said restaurants and or dining establishments.
got it? Okay.
Okay, any public comment up to this point? Anybody? Okay, we'll go on to chapter 3. Lisa?
Alright, So
Um,
in,
We're checking in with Judith as well, right? Judith,
Yeah.
anything so far?
in this section, as you refer to the Real McCoy, it's not a like #2 ferry. It's like,
What page?
so it's throughout the section. The first time I see it is on page 2
Okay.
in chapter 3.
Mhm.
The Real McCoy is like Roman numeral 2 ferry. Not
So
number
there's
2.
no hashtag, is that?
There's no #2. It's just Roman numeral 2. Like the Real McCoy 2 is a Roman numeral 2.
Okay, and that comes up other places.
Pardon?
There's other locations.
Yeah, it's pretty much done that way throughout when it was used.
Got it?
Um, I think it would be nice to indicate in that second paragraph, second line, where it says all commercial water vessels. I think it is helpful to the city and people reading this to understand how much we are impacted by the particularly large ocean-going cargo ships that transport goods from Central California to the world.
I'm sorry, where are we at?
So second line,
Of,
the second paragraph on page 3,
Okay.
where it says nearly all commercial water vessels. So maybe I'm in the chapter 3, page 3. I think you're not on the
oh,
right
I'm
page.
sorry, I thank you.
That's okay.
I was
trying to
I'm
read it
not
from here and
seeing
going like,
that.
wow, your paragraphs look different than mine.
Okay,
So second paragraph in the second line, it says all commercial water vessels. I'd like to add that something like particularly the large ocean-going cargo ships that transport goods from Central California to the world.
is that going to be in the paper you turned in?
Yes, I will hand that to you.
Thank you.
Sure. Because I think it indicates A, the impact on this town from that bridge, but B, also some of the economic contribution that we are making to the state's economy. On that same page, let's see, fourth paragraph, where it talks about the Highway 12 bypass and new Rio Vista Bridge have been contemplated for decades, that first sentence in that paragraph.
Mhm.
It would be, I think, beneficial to us to indicate that if we all had magic wands, that thing would be solved tomorrow, and if we had the money to do it, that we are having to interact and work with Caltrans and other forces well beyond our control for a solution. So it isn't that anybody in Rio Vista, leadership or otherwise, has been dilly-dallying around trying to solve that thing. It's that the hands are actually tied because it's a state highway, or because Caltrans has other plans, or there's not enough federal funding, or.
That is, the part of the problem is we've got 3 Caltrans we've got 3 counties involved, 3 Caltrans districts involved.
Yeah, and have their own political
Yes.
things, right?
Yes.
Within it. So the way I read it, it just, since it is this, it's the city putting forward that the Rio Vista Bridge has been contemplated for decades to be fixed. Well, yeah. And if we could, we'd fix it. But
What is not in this paragraph? Because I'm seeing it's been contemplated for some time.
Maybe at the
I
end,
think
we,
what's, oh, I'm sorry.
at the end, maybe we add, but limited by state funding or something to that effect, we can add.
Yes.
Costly and
And they're. So, so just, I think you're asking for an additional statement on the complexity of what it will take.
Yes. And I like Nick's part about that it's limited, that we are limited by forces well beyond our control. Because the way I read it too, where it just says that a new crossing would be costing could include a toll bridge, which some residents have expressed opposition to. Well, yes, they did, but this group nor the city council could seriously consider putting in a toll bridge because we don't control the bridge. So we can voice our approval of it or our opposition to it. It doesn't matter. So yes, I'm looking for that limiting factor of that the state has control.
Like-
Exactly. Well, I almost went there, but then I was like, oh, don't get crazy.
Okay.
Do you want to put anything in there about the tunnel? Or just let it go like it is? Because that's been discussed.
There was something in here about.
There
the
was.
tunnel.
There is, yeah.
Later on.
Oh, okay.
I think the last one that I have in this section is on page 12. Right above the paragraph of transportation funding. I just have a note that we also talked about prioritizing, asking for, desiring a third east-west arterial that was south of Highway 12. We talked about that as part of the economic development. We talked about it as part of the mobility. There isn't a road there right now, but as we talked about development and possibly dropping either down onto Montezuma Hills or into the backside of Vineyard Bluffs or. So I don't know if it's just a simple statement as.
So I'm going back to figure 3.2 and I'm seeing Imai Road. Is that generally what you're, some other way to feed in? Is that kind of the alignment? I'm not sure what you're. I
We did
recall
talk
some
about that.
discussions.
We talked about it there. We also talked about it coming off of that Amarada Hess. Sorry, I know it as Amarada Hess, that Amarada Road where that purple dot is in figure
Yeah.
3.2. And I think it's a question about where to drop it into, either as part of that bicycle pedestrian facility, or do you drop it down farther? Could you drop it down farther onto Amy if Amy was going to be improved? Do you pull it down and pull it into the backside of Vineyard Bluffs? I don't think we actually arrived at anything, but Art and I definitely were talking about how do you get a third arterial on that south side of Highway 12?
Yeah. Is that not what we're depicting in the blue dotted line? That it's called out as a potential off-street bicycle pedestrian facility, but I'm just not sure.
I didn't think so. I thought that blue dotted line literally was pedestrian, because
Okay.
we also talked about that blue dotted line not being down the center of that Esperson property, but being on the other side down the frontage along Trilogy, because there was an easement there and it might be
Yeah.
easier to get there.
Yeah.
To drop you down to Church where there's actually sidewalks.
But since then, I think that one that runs along the Trilogy wall, that property is going to be taken up by Caltrans, a lot of it. And
Oh,
so
okay.
that may pose a challenge
that's the
there.
edge.
So I don't know. They're widening, there'll be shoulders.
Ah.
And I don't know which side, well, the bike ped is gonna be running, or the bicycle path is gonna be running along there as well.
That purple dotted says potential on-street bicycle pedestrian. I see on-street there, so I would assume that that would be a street for all kinds of vehicles that could use that.
You're talking about on the highway?
No,
The purple one.
Oh, you're
purple
right.
one, the purple dotted one that goes down by Vineyard Bluff.
Yeah. Right. Since we're talking about that, I might just add, and I think this has to do with just definitions. And this is what Art was talking about, and I read it in a couple of locations too, about how we talk about class 2 bicycle lane, class 3 bicycle route, multi-use path, but we keep talking about bicycles and pedestrian, but we don't talk about, and I don't think we should use golf carts necessarily either. We should use a term that just encompasses everything from scooters to other, something, I don't know the term, but to encompass other modes of transportation, personal vehicles or
I-
Because scooters are used in bike lanes all the time now, for instance,
You're talking the stand-up scooters.
stand-up scooters,
Yeah.
but I don't know what it's gonna be in, 20 years from now. Might be a floating device or something.
I have some concerns about mixing motorized vehicles with bike lanes. I think that if we're going in the direction of really trying to accommodate carts, we need to be thinking about an on-street lane. And what that really necessitates is a discussion of, do we need a wider road?
Right, and I'm not even suggesting golf carts. I'm saying other vehicles. I mean, right now, scooters are used all over the place and they're used in bike lanes. But it's more than a bike lane is what I'm saying.
When there are some bikes that have motors on them.
That's right. And so it just seems it's a limiting language.
Mhm.
I know that we have for a very long time talked about bike lanes, talking decades and decades of
Right.
transportation planning. And so the nomenclature hasn't kept up, but I'm not sure where we go as far as describing a different type of mobility as other than bike lanes. Bike lanes the classifications of bike lanes is well understood, class 1, 2, 3 and such. I'm not sure where we go.
I guess I don't really care. People are gonna, if there's a lane and they have another mode of transportation, they're gonna use it. So I don't know if you really need to define it.
Well,
I don't really care, to be honest.
Well,
It just seems
for
it's limiting.
the official terminology, I feel a bit wed to the bike lane
As
classification
in, that's how we get
system,
funding.
But
then I would-
within the description of who's going to be using it, I think it's fine to say there, talk about the different modes. But
Right,
when you have a active transportation planning structure and a grant funding structure and a
Yes.
Caltrans structure, it's,
right.
I get a little bit concerned. when we
Yeah, I
diverge
understand.
from the known terms.
If we have it in some description, because I know at Caltrans at that level, we're talking about class 1, 2, and 3. And that's how we get our money. So I understand that.
Yeah.
Is it? Who's next?
Oh, you know,
Chair.
what, at the top of that page, I'm sorry, 12 since we're on there. It says, covers over from the previous page, as a result, residents must use Highway 12 to I-5 or SR 113 to travel to the north, but it doesn't include Highway 160. It would
And-
also take you to the north.
Sorry, Lisa, page again?
Page 12,
Okay.
the first. Me? Oh, my face is right up again. Sorry. So, it just says, as a result, residents must use Highway 12 to I-5 or SR 113 to travel to the north, but it doesn't include Highway 160.
Nor does it include State Route 84 and the Real McCoy. Oh, fair point.
I'm not loving this entire sentence. As a result, residents must use Highway 12 to I-5 or 113 to travel north, but those are two different things. So Highway 12 would get you to I-5 to travel south. You wouldn't go down 12 to 5 to go north.
Yeah, you do.
You
People do that a lot,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, they
Oh.
go down, go to Lodi and then they go up from there if they don't want to do the Windy River deal.
Ah. Okay.
yeah, if you use GPS, a lot of people.
So it's Highway
down-
12 to I-5 or Highway 12 to,
To
113
113. Or to 160, you're right.
or 160. Yeah.
That's SR 160, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we calling
Which
them
begs the
SRs or are we
question,
calling
no, I
them
think we're
highway?
gonna go with highway.
Yeah,
We'll
HWY.
do that
highway.
throughout. So Nick, any of those 84, 113, we want to make them highway.
Okay.
So we're overlooking 160 and
Well, 84 takes you to the ferry. It's not going to take you to that.
Yeah, does you go up, you on the north end of Ryer Island, or you go across and get off on the JMAC and you go up?
Oh, I'm talking about, yes, it'll take you, 84 will take you to the ferry.
Yeah.
It'll take you
Mhm.
across.
Yeah.
I understand.
I just did it today, as a matter of fact.
It's working.
So you
What
can
was the
report that it's working.
Maybe not.
We lucked
just
out.
here. Tom, go ahead.
I just had a minor comment on figure 3.1, the road classifications,
What
uh,
page?
page 6.
Thank you.
Major collector is showing Second Street running all the way down to Main Street. And I believe when we looked at this before, we talked about it jogging over with a truck route at St. Gertrude Street. So that's 4 blocks to the south of Main Street. And that brings it, onto Front Street and straight across. So if you want, I can send a markup of the map. That would be the most effective way.
please.
That's it.
Not in 3.
Can I do
Yeah,
a
go
second?
ahead.
I get a second chance.
I'll give you my time.
Thank you. Attribution. That was an inside joke. On page 3, second paragraph. Again, when we state numbers, I'd just like to have it to be referenced. For instance, it says recent vessel count provided by Caltrans indicates anywhere from 0 to 38 vessels pass. I don't know what that means by vessel. I mean, if that's just a boat that doesn't need the bridge raised, then whatever, but 38 large vessels would be 1.5 an hour, which would mean that the bridge would be up all day long.
Isn't it?
To some people, it feels that way, but yeah. Because it seemed like there's a big stretch, the average daily count between July and May was between 3 and 5, and then July through October tend to be the peak months, which would mean that they would have even more. So, I mean, I think there's just should be some reference data here.
Should maybe it be small craft vessels and
Whatever it
going
is.
vessels, two different things?
Yeah. I mean, if the bridge doesn't go up, then
Mm.
I don't think anyone really cares about that
I
traffic.
think what we're really interested in is how often the bridge needs to go up.
Correct.
So we need to
Right.
determine whether that 38 vessels was in fact all vessels that required.
Bridge, yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the next paragraph, I had mentioned this earlier, no, very last sentence, November 18th indicated approximately 20% of the trips on Highway 12 are locally serving. I remember looking at that economic development report or some appendix, and that 20% actually seems high. I think this must be a couple of the data points added together. So I just want to make sure there's that reference there.
We'll confirm that, but I was talking with Carly at Fair and Pierce today, and I think that is the correct number, but I'll confirm it.
Yeah, well, if there's that data that supports it in the back, that'd be helpful. Because I
They-
remember it being a very small percentage of people. It was like, there was a percentage of people that got off the highway, but it was only for 10 minutes. And so they might be counting that in that 20%. 10 minutes means they're stopping at the gas station and then getting right back on the highway. Most
Um,
people don't leave
They're
the highway.
using Highway 12 from Trilogy to downtown,
Who was?
Trilogy folks. Folks in the community using Highway 12 to get downtown. Our split is about half the people go airport, half the people jump on Highway 12. So I think what that's saying is of all of those trips, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll confirm it. These are just, majority of trips are passed through regional trips rather than local serving.
Yeah, I guess it was confusing to me. So I understand if you're talking about from Trilogy to down here, but I read,
That's residents
I was
using
reading
12
it.
to get downtown.
okay. If everyone else understands it, then I'll get over it. I was reading it as all traffic that travels on their own, 20% are getting off that are,
I think were you seeing it as 20% of the pass-throughs are stopping? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 20% of all trips. And those are residents just using Highway 12 as a local arterial. in that
Okay.
sense.
All right.
So we could explain that better.
Not sure if it matters, but there's been discussion, I think even reports that there's supposed to be a lot more large ship traffic on the river in the very near future, I believe. I
Really?
don't know if that's accounted
Is that-
for anywhere or not.
Is that Port of Sacramento activity or what?
I want to say that it was Fair and Paris who said it, that they were gonna multiply by
They,
3
yeah,
times or something
Fair
like that. It was
Peers
just
had
like
said that, and
so
I'm
crazy that it.
sure, pretty sure I've read it somewhere. in
Yeah.
a report. Going to Stockton, they don't affect us, but the ones that go to Sacramento. That means your bridge is gonna go up,
As long as they don't
up and
build it
down a
all.
lot more than it does now.
Then maybe we'll get our 38 quota.
Well, they need to take the right away from them. That's what's killing us. Make them wait.
Okay, next.
Anybody else? I have a couple things. On page 10, we talk about transit services and facilities and speaking of the Rio Vista buses, the Delta Breeze, you usually have to get an appointment. And it makes it sound like you can catch these buses anytime. So I called to find out, especially when I saw a destination to Ileton. And I was told that I couldn't get a bus to Ileton today, but I could put a request in for it tomorrow. So it should maybe be by request, just as a point of reference. Because I don't want anyone to think that they can catch, or we've been able to catch the bus whenever we want, because we can't. It's almost on demand busing on the Delta Breeze.
And this would relate to the last sentence, I think, the Rio Vista Ileton, or no, Delta Breeze.
Yeah, Delta Breeze, that first section after transit services and facilities.
Aren't these talking about two different?
They are.
buses?
Well, they're talking about, the Fairfield buses, and then it does mention the Delta Breeze, and it says dial-a-ride services.
But that's what's this Ileton City Circulator? That's different than the Delta Breeze, right?
Yeah,
I don't
it
know what
is.
that is.
It is.
That's a dial-a-ride, and I think the Delta Breeze is on a regular route, I think.
No,
It's
it's
not
not.
anymore? It
No.
used to be.
I called Monday on this.
Okay.
Yeah. So I couldn't get it Monday, but I could get it Tuesday so long as I put a reservation for it.
Wow.
Just as a point of reference. And then also on page 10, the last sentence is more like a paragraph that kind of rambles a little bit. On page 11, we're talking about Highway 12 being a truck route. Maybe we should explain why Highway 12 is a truck route, because it bypasses Sacramento for people that want to go from I-5 down to, I-80 down to I-5 in the Central Valley. And that might explain why it's used more as a truck route and a bypass to get around Sacramento.
And would that be in the goods movement discussion on page
Yeah.
11?
Somewhere in the first paragraph. And then also as a point of reference under air transportation, do we want to put tidbits of history in this? Because we talk about the airport, but the airport was originally used for crop dusters. Do we want to note that progression from crop dusters to pretty much private planes, or do we not care?
I think we're trying to do a policy document, and the fact that there was an evolution that's something that's no longer active, it may be interesting, but it's,
Okay,
I would probably pass unless you feel like there's something that helps to guide
Well,
a decision.
the only thing is that we're a small community and we're one of very few that have an airport. So, why do we have this airport, I guess? And that was the reason why we have the airport, because it was originally done for crop dusting. Yeah. Okay. And then I need a consensus probably for page 13. We have goals, we have policies, and then I believe we have programs. Would it make sense that we would list the very first one on page 13, MC1, the goal, then we would list the policy and then the program, so they're all together, instead of flipping back and forth to see what that progression is?
Oh, I see what you mean, like.
Yeah, if you're talking
like
about the
MC1,
circulation.
Here are the goals for MC1,
Right.
policies for MC1.
Right.
And
Keep the
That
three
makes
together
sense.
and then go on to the
The
next one.
programs. I think that would be a lot more clear.
It makes logical sense to me, and I just, like I said, when I kept flipping back and forth with this, I thought I shouldn't have to flip it back and forth to see what the goal for MC1 is and what the policy is for it and what the program is for it. It should list them, boom, 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 and then go on to MC2.
They
Policy,
correlate to each other, though.
what's
Yeah.
that?
They don't always correlate to each other. MC1
Right.
correlate to MC,
Right, but
policy.
there are a lot that do, and I think the ones that correlate to each other, I think would be best to group them together. And then then whatever's left, you can put additional policies or additional programs after that.
There is not there are in instances a one-for-one relationship. In many cases, there are not.
Right.
A program may actually affect more than one policy, or a policy may be related to more than one goal. So as we try to do this and slice it out, it becomes challenging. I know that we've played with this a little bit in some of the different elements where there was a little bit more of a sequence. It would be challenging and in many cases not a good fit as we try to say, oh, we don't precisely have a policy related to this program or.
I understand that, but we're going to be giving this to the public, and they're not going to know what you just told us about the goals and the policies and the programs. So if the goal has a policy and a program, I think it should be listed together, and then.
So one other reason just to consider, in general, a policy helps you make a decision and a program directs staff to do something. And those are two different things. So when a planning commissioner or a city council is trying to render a decision, they're not going to be looking at the programs. Typically, they're probably going to be looking at the policies. So they're really two different animals. Although they have a relationship and, everything in this section is addressing circulation. And in some cases, there is this kind of neat one-for-one fit. We didn't strive for that in drafting the programs or the policies. We could have, but what we find is it's rather limiting. Because then if it doesn't, everything flows from three goals. I'm not sure. It would be a relatively, it would be an interesting effort to try to go through the general plan at this point and correlate all the goals, policies and programs into groups like that.
My take is, I think it's a great idea, but I think it would become a little more confusing because a particular goal might have 3 different policies that fit within it. And then the next one might have 2. And then you're gonna have to repeat the same policies under each one of those goals as well. And there's gonna be different crossover. And then you're gonna get to the programs and it's gonna further complicate it. because there's gonna be a lot of crossover, so you'd have to repeat it multiple times.
But if the average person is reading this, they're not gonna realize that it may need to be repeated in all the other parts too. And if we're trying to sell to the public, I think it needs to be, in a sense, user-friendly. And I mean, and the rest of the chapters are just the same way with the goals, the policies, and the programs. So if we want this to be user-friendly, it's not user-friendly to the average person. That's just my point.
I think the title kind of leads you down that road. Because you say goal MC1 and then policy MC1, same designation, I think MC1 attaches to MC1 and, you know. so it
Okay.
Kind of leads you down, trying to attach them when they're not.
So to your point, where's goal MC4 when you have a policy of MC4?
Right.
That's the point.
So I think that's the point that we should make then, is that we should move away from maybe it's saying MC1 and policy MC1 because it does lead you down that path.
Right.
So just say policy 1,
Yeah.
goal 1, I mean, and don't write MC1 because MC1 seems like it's specifically referencing something.
Right.
Yeah.
So the MC designation, it leads you to mobility and circulation versus ED1 leads you to economic development. So in the citation of policies, that's
Yeah.
helpful. We're not going to number the goals sequentially 1 through 40 or however many goals there are. And so we chose that MC to be the, attaching it to the mobility and circulation element.
Here's a novel idea. Why don't we turn the goals into goal A, B, and C?
We could absolutely do that. We could
And then
use
everything
Roman
else would
numerals.
remain the same.
We could use letters for the goals, 1 through whatever for policies and Roman numerals for the programs. If that would differentiate them, that's absolutely something we can accomplish.
I think that would be a little more clear.
What if you use some color too? Like so if goals all throughout were in a blue band and then policies throughout are in a green band, just the title. I'm not talking that whole section, just the title, so that then your eye is also trying to relate all of these goals. Because I think for me, part of the confusion was this formatting makes it look like goals and policies and procedures have equal weight with how things were bolded, how things are formatted on the page.
So Nick, I think a challenge to us is how to differentiate the goals, policies, and programs a little bit better. Maybe that's through nomenclature, maybe it's with some color, maybe it's with some formatting. But right now, it's a little bit overwhelming to the reader, I think is what we're hearing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think confusing, to Walt's point, I think it's confusing because you try to correlate and you're like, well, but isn't funding supposed to be used for everything? Yeah.
There's some definitions or disclaimer or something that can be added.
Well, I think if we did the Roman numeral thing, it might be the best way to go.
And I think we did discuss this in the introduction. We talked about the goals, policies, and programs in the introduction up front. So maybe we might need to revisit that section. And Nick, might be, if we're gonna color code headings, we could start that in the introduction and kind of build that understanding, something like that.
Yeah. And maybe even worth repeating here before you get into the goals, policies, and programs. We have some type of just narrative right there under 3.5.
Whatever makes it easier for people to understand, I think should be our goal. Yeah, come up to the podium, please.
Okay, I have to say that when I was looking at this, I was confused about what MC was because it's 13 pages in from the chapter heading of mobility and circulation. And I had to go back and try and find out what the MC stood for. So I'm just wondering at this point, if you could clarify there what MC is, so people aren't wondering what the MC stood for, because I don't see MC clarified anywhere else in these pages. The letters MC.
One thing that will help is the final document will have footers on it, and so you'll see mobility and circulation at the bottom. So that may be that visual prompt to remind you, oh, you're in open space, OS, you're in land use, LU. So I think that will become more clear through the footers and the formatting of the final document, but
It might, but I don't think people look at documents like that. I think they're just looking for information. So as clear as you can be and in your headings, it would be
and
easier
so,
to read.
so do you have a suggestion on the best way to accomplish that?
Well, I think by the time you get to page 13, where you have the goals and the policies, if you could write in there, goals, policies, and implementation programs of mobility and circulation.
What if we just put it at the top of the page?
That would
Mobility and
even be
circulation.
better.
That
Yeah,
way,
because you're
you're in
lost,
that
you're
section
lost
and-
by this point.
yeah, they're all the same.
Right, and MC in parentheses.
Yeah.
Yeah, with MC
Yeah.
and parentheses.
Page 15,
Mhm.
MC6. I don't know if I was dreaming this or we actually talked about it, but did we talk about the possibility of one-way streets at one point or not? Because if we did, it's not mentioned in here. And then if we didn't, should it be mentioned in here that we might change streets to one-way for better traffic flows?
If, I don't think we have any plans to do that at this time.
Right, but-
We're certainly not precluded from changing a street to one way, but if it's not something we're actively thinking about right now, I'm not sure that it's a discussion we want to go into to say, we could do this, but we're not.
Well, we're doing a lot of this, we're doing a lot of speculation now that we might not do in the future either. So, I mean,
Okay?
I think maybe just a bullet point that says, for traffic flow, consider possibly, changing two-way streets to one-way streets.
And
As an option.
Where would that go again?
I have it under MC6. It talks about Highway 12 congestion. It talks about outside agencies that align with the bridge and the vision. And then it talks about traffic calming. It says evaluate installation of traffic calming devices. Well, I think that might be a traffic calming device. Because if people can't go down that one street, they're not going to be able to do it.
So
least-
possibly evaluate installation of traffic calming devices or designations for one-way traffic.
For possibly
local-
one-way traffic, yeah.
Got it?
And then I have a question on page 17. MC6. Is it 6? Wait a minute. Yeah. It talks about bike parking standards. What are bike parking standards other than locking your bike at a bike rack?
The
No,
number
but-
of spaces required based on the size of the building. Use and size of building. We have standards for that.
I didn't realize that.
How many
Okay.
bike racks?
Yeah,
What's that?
How many bike racks that might be needed? There's specific standards.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
okay.
Anybody else for chapter 3? Judith, go ahead. Oops, yep.
Yeah, going back to what we were talking about before, what if we just had goals for mobility and circulation and then not have any numbers, but just bullet points? And then policies for mobility and circulation, bullet points.
Because it-
we,
You want-
when staff's doing reports and the commissioner council is considering things, we often refer to policies. So we might refer to consistency with policy MC5 rather than stating the whole policy. So I think that there would be times that if the policies had no identity, that would either lead to having write a lot of stuff out as compared to referencing.
Okay.
So I think at the staff level, we'd like to have some identity associated with each policy.
Okay, makes sense?
Although with the goals, there's very few of them, and if we wanted to just go with bullets on the goals, that would be less concerning, if that makes sense. But
Then that changes your consistency in a way.
say again?
It kind of changes your consistency in a way by pinpointing exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, so,
Oh.
I think we do have a structure we talked about, which may be, letters and numbers for, okay, so we'll stick with that.
How much further do we want to go?
I don't think we're gonna get through this tonight.
Right.
So I think we do need to talk about, the next night that we're gonna get together and how soon we can do that.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment? Like the next chapter, economic development, goes from page 1 to page 4, and I think your binder is the same way. Is everyone's missing pages?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Word doc, though, that we got emailed is complete. Just the binder is.
He said the Word document that we got is complete, but
Economic development, we're
not-
missing
It's just
pages
not in
2,
here.
3, and 4, or 2 and 3.
And that's
there
the same
something
with
else
the
that-
Parks and Rec, chapter also, the same issue. It's missing some pages.
It goes from page, Parks and Recs goes from page 1 to page 6.
Yep.
And then on chapter 7, I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't have a page 1.
I do.
I don't have one.
That's
I
odd.
did get that.
I guess I didn't win the lottery.
I dropped my binder today and all the pages. The little thing
No.
popped open and everything.
525 page pickup.
Sure, how far do you want to go this evening?
I mean, is this enough for you? Or, I mean, do we want to, how many more sections do we have?
Well, we're,
By far, you're about halfway.
yeah,
Do we want to do one more and then we're halfway through?
But we have to have the changes done by April
19th.
19th. Not meeting again.
There's 10 chapters.
Whatever you all want to do, I don't care.
Well, we're missing pages on economic development, so
Right.
we're not gonna be able to do that. I mean, I could give my comments up to for everything else on there.
Yeah, I have everything good. But we're all
Sort of the
salary,
last
so it
chance
doesn't
to-
matter to me.
we'll double your salary.
Thank you. Do we want to stop here or do we want to continue, guys?
I'd say we got it out through economic development and then stop there,
Okay,
since that's what.
Are you
We're
guys,
missing half the pages of the book.
Well, we'll just talk about what we have.
Okay.
So, but we are through mobility and circulation.
Hmm.
Those are two of the most significant elements in the general plan. So that's that, and we did get through the introduction, so that's 3 chapters. If we could get another one, that would be great. Do we want to do economic development, given it has missing pages?
yeah,
I have a real simple one for economic development, the
go ahead, Tom.
figure 4.1 vacant and underutilized, page 5. It appears that the Vineyard Bluffs area is mapped out as vacant there. I think that's kind of a problem.
We just got wiped off the map.
I don't
Well,
have to pay my
Yeah,
mortgage.
I see it. Okay, good catch.
That was it.
Well, while we're on that page, I have a note that says, the Rio Vista dump, should it be considered vacant or underutilized? Because it's there and at one point we will be able to hopefully do something with it. I know that we've got some issues with it, but should hopefully by 2045, those issues will be gone and maybe we can use it for a walking park or something.
The purpose of this is economic development, private development
Right.
primarily. The idea was where could new development go? And so in that sense, I think we've already decided that if we reclaim the dump, it would be going to parkland. So that's
Okay,
functionally different than what we're trying to depict here.
I'm good with that.
I guess the other piece on that map too, at the airport, there's kind of the triangle area where they put roads in for a little business park that never really happened. So that could probably be considered vacant or underutilized.
There's actually two triangles that are designated zoned commercial out there. They
Mhm.
probably both belong on this.
Yeah.
So,
About that. Oh,
yeah,
Yes.
got it.
okay. Page 8. This, yeah, seems a little insulting. On page 8, the very top, it says River Delta Unified School District faces significant challenges. I just get rid of significant. We don't know how significant.
Faces challenges.
Yeah.
Got it?
And then down under the third bullet point, under economic development partners, Rio Vista exists in a broader regional economy. Solano Economic Development Corporation works to promote economic development throughout Solano County. And a semicolon, as does the Small Business Development Center. And then page 9. We reference again different developments, but I wanted to add in the 62.5 acres cities. That's in the third
The
paragraph.
Small Business Development Center.
Yeah, SBDC. It's called Napa Solano.
SBDC?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
And so the third paragraph, the next page, also within Rio Vista's boundaries are 2 approved projects. I didn't know whether you wanted to add, it's not an approved project, but we're talking about land, the city's 62.5 acres. If it's appropriate.
Well,
I wasn't
This-
sure whether or not.
Does the word approved kind of change that?
Yeah, because if
Yeah.
it's approved, then it's not approved. So,
Ever Brand Ranch isn't approved.
so that's true. It's not
It's,
approved at
it's
this point.
lapsed. That's unentitled land. So I
Yeah.
think we need to.
So maybe
I
remove
think
that.
let's get away from approved projects and
Yeah.
projects with potential
Potential
development. Then we can,
projects.
yeah.
Under 4.6, and this, I think I'm maybe opening up a can. I thought there was some discussion around the waterfront specific plan and how the language within there talked about more residential uses. And it was a little in conflict with the RUDAT report. And I thought that was going to be discussed. I don't know whether it's, I think that's more general, the planning commission. I think that was going to be on your doc.
We looked at the waterfront specific plan at the last meeting. And
Okay.
we talked about, there was residential on the waterfront, and we talked about just having residential not on the bottom floor, but only
Mixed
on the
use.
top. Mixed, yes.
Right.
And not
Yeah.
having any residential on the lower floor.
Yeah, and then on the other side of Front Street, potentially some commercial on the ground floor along the frontage
Right.
on front. But as you kind of work back toward Hillside Terrace, it becomes pretty much solely residential.
Okay. And so when we talk about this revitalization, we reference it, should we also reference the change of use or the modification?
That's still supposed to go to city council, I think,
Okay.
the waterfront specific plan changes.
Okay. I guess it could change, stay. Page 10. 15, oh, actually, you can't change that. That's a quote from that report.
Yep.
Policy ED7 under page 11. And this happens a couple times. We talk about the river. We encourage and support efforts of the River Delta Unified School District. And I think we're limiting it to the school district, but there's adult education, for instance. And so, and I think Lisa had a good way of stating it at one of our meetings, but we should be more inclusive, I think. I mean, I just wrote and adult education to increase investment in educational programs.
Does
But there
that
might be-
differ then from training in educational institutions?
I'm looking at ED7.
Yep,
Yeah.
program?
I'm sorry, policy.
Okay. Yeah, in the program, I think we have the words added. And
Yeah,
training in educational institutions, so.
right. Right.
In fact, I think that policy ED7 and program ED7 are duplicative.
And then finally, I think one of our challenges is the ability to draw people into our town. And under our programs, we should have something about signage to improve visibility. Because they talk about, people coming off of Highway 12, they don't know that we exist basically. But that's probably because they don't know we exist because there's no sign. I think that's it. I mean, other than,
Would that be a program? Do we,
mm,
or policy, what,
you tell me.
I think there's a program we want to take action on. We want to improve the signage.
Yes, okay. And then I wasn't sure whether this should go here or not. I wrote, create adult education programs to meet employment needs in, employment needs period, I guess I wrote in biotech, but that's not necessary. How's that?
Okay,
You want to go, Walter? Do you want me to?
Go ahead.
On page 1, in that chapter 4, second paragraph. I don't think a business has a standard of living, so I just changed that sentence in the second paragraph, just the vitality of businesses and the standard of living of residents. I'll hand it to you so you can see it, but the way it reads right now, it says the standard of living of residents and businesses. And maybe I'm not aware, but I don't think that businesses have standards of living.
just drop in businesses.
I changed it to read, economic well-being and the vitality of businesses and the standard of living of residents.
Okay,
On page 9, this may have just been brought up. I was trying to read fast. Where at third paragraph, where it says both projects have received entitlements, on page 3 in chapter 2, it literally says that Brand Ranch does not have that it had lapsed. So there's an inconsistency. Okay.
Yeah.
In 4.6, in that paragraph, North 5th Street, that's the first time I've seen the downtown described with North 5th. It usually talks about 7th Street. So it's just a matter of consistency. However you want to do it, either you have to add North 5th to the other places or take it off of this one. And that's all I had.
Emmett, you have anything? Art?
Nope.
Judith? Nope, okay. I have a couple things. On page 1 of chapter 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th paragraph down, the second sentence, it says, while it does not directly control the workforce, a city can promote education, training programs, and improve the productivity. Can we kind of make that a combo, the city and the school district? Because I think the school district teaches, and we really don't have any any teaching programs for workforce really here. And maybe that might promote the city and the school district to have some kind of and I don't want to say mentorship, but, and it could be, but have like trade schools and, I mean, if somebody doesn't want to go down to college, the school district might be able to want to work with the city or some of the city businesses, put somebody in a store or a restaurant to maybe pursue that. So I'm just saying, just change from a city to the city and school district. Does that sound good or not?
So we would be shifting from generic city to the city of Rio Vista and.
No,
the
I'm
River
just saying,
Delta.
I'm just saying the city. And,
Okay.
and, I mean, this is all about Rio Vista, obviously, for the most part, so.
But he's saying by using a city, he was talking, it was
It's
generic
generic.
versus the city, which then becomes Rio Vista.
But isn't that what we're kind of talking
Well,
about? The city?
Yes, the way you're saying it, you are talking about the city. The way that it is written right
Mhm.
here, it is talking about a city in generically. A city does not have, a town does not have, not Rio Vista, the city, and you're asking to change it to the city.
The city and
Yeah.
school district, yeah. Right here. Page 1.
And then also I would just add to that, that we keep speaking about the school district, but I know that there's Chandra Drury has an adult education,
Mhm.
and I don't know who actually sponsors it or does it, but it's not part of the school district. But they do adult education, and I don't know if they do placement, but it's in the trades. And so we should probably somehow integrate that in. I could reach out to her too, if you'd like.
So.
Should I reach out to her and get you that contact information? Or not necessary?
Yeah, no, that would be great, because I think that there may be a more specific program that we want to think about, but the general comment is first, do we want to talk about cities and their partners, or do we want to talk about Rio Vista, the Unified School District, and others? We can be more specific here. We can go either way.
I think I would take Walt's point and maybe Edwin's both to say that that sentence should change to the city in alignment with even the first sentence in that paragraph. Add the school district and maybe this other adult education program.
And maybe just call it adult education, because we don't know, it may go away in a year or two.
I don't know if it's the same in this county, but Pittsburgh, the adult schools, they're part of a collective.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but I mean, they come and go, or there
Mhm.
may be different programs, so we could keep it generic.
Then the very first paragraph, second line, it says stores providing goods. Can we add goods and services and also restaurants to this as well?
Goods and services.
Restaurants and entertainment.
Yeah. Okay, page 7. Let's see here. Under challenges, it says, the third bullet point down, there is a relatively high rate of vacancy and underutilization of retail spaces downtown. All right, so I did some research and counted. And on Main Street, we only have 5 empty storefronts. We have 32 full storefronts and 1 that's under construction. So that always gets me, because people think that because there's a building that's full and it's not a retail space or a restaurant or a bar than their empty storefronts. And I'm referring to especially, we have the accountant on Main Street, we have Real Vista Farms bookkeeping next door to me, and people just think that they're all empty when they're really not. So that gives a perception that most of Real Vista says a high rate of vacancy. I don't consider 5 stores on Main Street a high rate of vacancy.
No. It's interesting that there's this perception that there's a lot of storefronts that people want to rent, but
Right.
they're not available. So the perception isn't
And
accurate.
yeah, and if there's something that they want and we don't have it on Main Street, then, it kind of falls into that empty storefront scenario, which really isn't true. Mhm.
Highest and best use of a property. on
Well,
Main
that,
Street.
I believe that's what it is. I
Yeah.
think that they would much rather have a retail, they'd rather have the bookstore there instead of the accountant.
I like
So-
the sentence saying underutilized. I think that's effective, but you're right, vacancy is probably
Yeah,
inaccurate.
Yeah, so
Mhm,
just
right.
taking a vacancy out, saying there's a relatively high rate of underutilization of retail spaces.
yeah.
Yeah,
And downtown properties are not always well maintained. Is that accurate? I seem to hear that.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, obviously, right? I mean,
We have community volunteers going down and washing windows for people for free. So something's going on.
still in the eye of the beholder, though.
Okay,
yeah.
do we want to leave that in? This is where you guys help us get the tone right.
I'm fine with leaving. I think it's okay.
I'm okay. I mean, I just don't want to be too negative, just because people that are potentially coming into our town are going to read our general plan. And if we're just slamming it all the way through, then it's not
So
going
what
to be
You know,
very
it's on the
positive.
New York Times bestseller. We're
And
going
could be-
Kindle.
And could be more attractive, could have a better,
Could be modernized.
Mhm.
Right above the challenges, the bullet point for California Forever says, could provide opportunities for economic development and potential investment in Rio Vista, such as increased service population and financial support for major infrastructure projects. My understanding and what I've heard is that California Forever will pay their fair share. So it doesn't sound to me as if they're willing to pay for major infrastructure projects, because if they're going to pay their fair share, then Solano County, Rio Vista, and even the state are going to pay for improving 12 and that kind of type thing. So can we just remove the and financial support of major infrastructure?
Certainly, they have not made a commitment to that, so that's absolutely
Concur.
fair.
Okay. And I'm not the best person to speak on this, but on page 9, the second from the bottom paragraph, it calls California Forever project. And being that we're kind of focusing on the future, should we list in there that they've purchased a share of the McCormick Trust that has property on the riverfront and on Highway 12? I mean, we didn't know that when we first started doing this, and this is a recent development, and Rick may want to speak to this more than I can, but 5 or 6%, whatever they own, that's today. Tomorrow it could be 25% or whatever. But I think it's worth noting because it's an actual thing that we have to live with right now.
Well, we could even be more vague and just say that they purchased interest in commercial property in downtown, because there's rumors
That's
that they're
fine.
even looking at other.
No, that's
Think
fine,
as
but I
well,
think
yeah.
it needs to be noted in that.
Sure.
Mhm.
Good point.
Right, but we're talking about it potentially the development potential currently within Rio Vista, the California Forever project, we're already talking about the project. Shouldn't we, like Rick says, generically put I mean, yes or no?
I don't know how much we want to separate California Forever from the property.
The other 30 people in the trust.
We do throughout this whole document. It's not just a one-time thing.
5:15 tonight, when you said, what's it gonna be a year or two from now? Is it going to be a California Forever? Yeah. Whether it's finally, whether it's California Forever at 113, yes, we refer to them a lot. Why they are different than anybody else.
Well, and this says beyond the development potential currently within Rio Vista, the
Right.
California Forever project. Then we're talking about outside, beyond the development potential in Rio Vista, then you're talking about the California Forever project, which is outside.
Okay, then read the sentence right above where it says these available properties provide opportunities for economic growth. And if we're talking economic growth, we know that we have a diamond in the rough with the waterfront, and they have a share in that waterfront.
What I read as different here is, as Lisa was mentioning, first of all, California Forever absolutely has made a proposal to build a new town that will have 50,000 residents. That's their game.
I'm not debating that.
I don't know if they even particularly wanted the land that they got in the city, or if they really wanted it. I understand that they have done some due diligence, so I don't think they necessarily wound up with a 6% ownership that they have no interest in, but it's vacant land that is available to develop, possibly by Flannery, possibly by others. What is it we would want to say in this passage, or is it even really a California Forever thing, or is it really a statement about there's some great land in downtown that could be developed that has potential for?
I think that's the point. That there's great land that's available in the downtown, because we do have land that's on our waterfront that's very valuable. But I think there's not enough fact out here today about that ownership of property. I mean, it could be, and I'm not getting into details, but it isn't necessarily all on the waterfront. It could be the McCormick Trust owns property all over Highway 12 as well. So I think we're making a lot of assumptions about the property or what their ownership is without having the facts.
We're making a lot of assumptions about California Forever
No,
in
we're-
general.
Well, no, we're not. California project, we already know exactly what that project's gonna be. And we know exactly what their property is that they own out on Esperson Ranch, for instance. Those are facts.
Their proposal seems to be changing though. Because they're in their third phase of it. I'm just stating a fact.
So would this even just be an additional paragraph? Not, I mean, it can be associated with California Forever. Is there something that we want to be highlighting so that it would inform our decisions?
Well, we mentioned California Forever purchasing the Esperson Del Rio Hills property. Why wouldn't we mention this? It's the same thing.
We don't have the facts around it.
What facts you need?
Where exactly is the property? I probably know more than some of you guys, and I know that, or I'm not gonna even go into details, but that's not necessarily a fact.
So it's not a fact that they own 6%?
Well, when you say 5 or 6%, where is that property? You can't define it on a map, probably. Can you?
Well, if you know where the McCormick Trust property is, yeah, they own
They have trust,
5
they
or
have
6% of
property,
that.
they have property all on Highway 12 as well.
Right.
Yeah, it goes up to the Shell station, that
Yeah.
whole property.
All right, well,
But then
I
I think
defer
if
to
you
you
did
guys.
that, you would have to mention the other properties that are on the waterfront that are owned by different people or other owners on
Yeah.
the waterfront besides the McCormick Trust. So we'd be mentioning those other names. Well, I mean, I don't understand why we
Yeah.
would want to single them out on, without, mentioning all the other people that own
Right.
a piece of that promenade.
especially when if it's fact, 5% or 6%.
Maybe we shouldn't have done economic development tonight.
No, but that, and it's a fundamental difference that they own Esperson property outright as opposed to 5%, which is a very small minority interest.
I mean, we could, another solution is we could get real vague, we had, for instance, Chris Koenig is a developer that just, he's acquired a fair amount of property. The Lampas have been acquiring a fair amount of property, California forever. We could just say recent acquisitions by several various developers, have, which hasn't been done in decades, has just recently be done, something more eloquent.
Yeah, I would be okay with it being generic. I mean, the Spradlings and Gomes bought a block, for
Mhm.
instance. But
And
they,
that
but
hasn't
then
happened in decades,
Yeah.
It's starting to move all of a sudden in the last couple.
Right. But I'm not good with calling them out specifically. I mean, as Donnelly said, it's 5% or 6%, whatever that number is.
I think what Rick said that's very positive. is
Yeah.
The amount of movement
I
that
agree.
we've seen lately. Yep.
Anybody else?
I may be
Weight
the
wise, we
outlier,
made it
but
to
I,
50%.
And I'm
I
glad-
still think we need to, somewhere we should be addressing across the river. There's not much across the river, but we certainly are geographically closer to our neighbors in Ileton and and they certainly affect our traffic on Highway 12. And so, yes, some of our residents here have started businesses over there.
So I think you're saying not from a land use planning perspective, but just from an economic development context.
Yes. I mean, if we were to reach out do recreation, there's RV parks, there's all kinds of things that we could tie in from an economic development standpoint, if we want to bring tourists to this town to spend money and stuff, that if we can find and get them in an RV park out there and say, come to Rio Vista, and we've got these great restaurants and so on and so forth. So partnering with the businesses on Sherman Island and just that whole area could be very beneficial, but they're in a different county. On the
Well,
other-
they're in a different county, but on Sherman Island, they have our zip code.
If they're considered Rio Vista.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a meeting Tuesday night in Ileton with the supervisor from Sacramento County that's covers that area.
So where are you suggesting that be put?
I'm not
I
sure.
think it's in the fourth paragraph on page 2.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I don't
Look at
have
that.
page 2.
That's
We don't
right.
have page 2.
Joking
Oh,
aside,
there
I
it
think
is.
that we do actually have a discussion of the context of the Delta and the communities, because I know we've had this discussion.
I know we
and
have.
I do believe it's in there already, so I will check for it and make sure we have that context of the greater Delta, because that was a big point within the economic development strategy, so.
Yes.
Anywhere else? If you want to take them, Edwin,
No, I don't want to be
how
killed.
many 5-minute sections can you get in that?
If somebody's willing to give me their 5 minutes, then I'd go for a while.
Not on council nights.
Timer running.
I'm sure there's a
KD.
remote control around here somewhere for it.
KB could say 30 seconds.
Your time is up.
Then you fall through the floor.
Where are we at?
Chair.
Is that it for economic development for now?
I think so.
We will get you the 2 missing pages so that you can have those and
Parks and Recs missing pages too,
yeah.
but it's, yeah.
So we've made it through introduction, land use and circulation. Are you comfortable giving us those sections from your binders? Do you need to keep them? Because in some cases, we didn't take complete notes because we understood we get them in writing. How are we going to proceed? Because staff can begin working on what you've given us this evening. And we'd like to get to work as quickly as possible.
Well, I won't
But
be here on the 19th, so I'll just give you mine.
you've gotten through the whole thing.
Mhm.
Okay. Others?
I won't be here on the 19th, so you're welcome to. I'm leaving town.
So you're ready to turn it in?
Yeah, you can have mine.
Great. We do have to get you the additional pages so you can take a look at Parks and Recreation and Economic Development. And then you can just respond with email comments. I would be surprised.
They're in there.
I think somebody, yeah.
They're in there.
So this was a copier glitch. It probably
Hmm.
double fed or triple fed some pages and then just kept going and nobody would ever know it, so. Okay, so
Okay.
at this point, we're gonna collect 2 binders. Other folks, you feel comfortable reviewing and commenting on the binders and getting them in by the 19th? Is that gonna work?
I mean, emailing you, is that? What-
You can do it in handwriting on your binder and turn the binder back in. You can do it in a Word document, whatever is easiest for you.
So when we have like substantial things, that are not just formatting, how do those get incorporated or not when we are not here to discuss them? Or we haven't had a chance to discuss them as a group? How do we? do
That is the challenge where we can go through and when we see things that are substantial, we can flag those and put together an issues page. I'm not sure that I mean, really, I wish we could go through all of the elements together. I think we need to. And if you can't meet, you can still turn in the binder and your comments will be discussed then. So we would have a chance because really the group to vet some of the bigger comments is helpful. And it is challenging, honestly, when we get comments that may not align and, we have to pick one over the other. That's not a place staff wants to be.
We want to pick a date tonight.
We should.
I'm out of town.
I am too.
I would not be available. So please, next Thursday. Yes.
I'm fine. Guess it's really KB with the city calendar. How, it sounds like some people can't make it on the 18th. How many people could make it on the 18th? How about the 17th?
Both those days are free of city stuff and staff, well, myself.
Yeah, 17th, I'm 18th. 18th?
Oh,
Yeah.
can't, okay. April 18th.
You'll be here, Lisa?
No.
I won't be either.
Oh,
Yep.
you have that point there.
Yeah,
Vice.
interim.
I don't come back until the 1st. So
Yeah, I am out the 15th through the 28th.
what if we did this on our next scheduled meeting in May 2nd? Is that too far off for everybody or? Right?
Yeah.
But they're gonna get the changes on the 19th. They're gonna need time to go over those changes, right? Or no? Or are we gonna hash it out like we did tonight?
No, yeah, I think, you know, this is the process. We kind of have to come to consensus on these points, so.
Then the majority will decide because I won't be here. Lisa won't be here.
Well,
Well,
make sure you just get your points in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have them. Yeah, I've got them all
And
done.
do we want to appoint an actual interim to run the meeting? I don't know how that works. That's never happened. Do we take a motion?
Is having it ready to go by the 19th so that you can make the 15th? Like, is the 19th can't move, as Walt was saying, till late, like, those are our dates, or are there reasons other than not wanting to go into the summer? Clearly for a public presentation. Is there something that is being driven by staff, et cetera, that wouldn't allow us to just maintain our next meeting date? Finish this out. Now you've got it.
nothing at all. No, what will happen is we'll push our community meeting into summer. Right? You know, is that a problem? I mean, I don't think so.
I guess what I'm asking is it can't be condensed on the other end. If we push to May 2nd because some of us can't be here, does that mean that May 15th and June 10th, let's say, have to get pushed?
We won't
later
make May 15th at that point. So that's not enough time because
to turn?
we're getting, you know,
Substantial.
some, yeah, and stuff that has to be done before it can go into InDesign, which is the
Understood.
formatting program. So
Okay.
we had a little bit of wiggle room on the 15th. The 15th was being driven by the community having the 3 weeks review time. So I think if we don't make the 15th, then we should reconsider the 6th. But there's nothing magic about the 6th. I mean, if
6th of
we're-
June.
the 6th of June. There's nothing, we don't have to hit that. Our EIR is still moving through its process. It still needs to go out for its 45-day review. We still then need to do a final EIR. So if we don't go to the community on June 6th, it's not going to change the date that we actually adopt the general plan. There's other things we have to do.
Understood. I took good notes, so they're all yours as far as I'm concerned. There you go. Giving you
Great.
good input.
And we all know that Lisa gives us lots of input.
How far would, how many more weeks would you have to push it?
Considered to be discussion points amongst the group. That might- oh,
That's what I did with the orange tabs. Everything else in there has been like formatting issues or word issues, or should we have a period here? So, yes, I tried to do that.
Because I'm thinking with that first week of June with all the school things going on, you might want to go ahead and push it at least a week or so. And try and catch people before they do take off for the summer, or as many as you can.
Okay. So first of all, we need to figure out if the June 6th is even a bad day. So we may have a reason right there that we want to push. I think it's really at your discretion. I would like to have the full body, honestly. I'd like to have all of you available. We're going to be getting comments from Walt and Lisa this evening, so we have that to work on. We have a lot of comments from the introduction land use and circulation already, so we've got stuff to start working on. That's great. It's going to let us get out a little ahead. So that means that come the 19th or whatever, if we go on the May meeting, we're a little bit out ahead of ourselves, which is good.
I guess I don't really have a problem pushing it out. I mean, we are gonna lose people to vacation. Frankly, I'm gonna be lost to vacation if it's done on June 6th myself. So people are gonna leave, but I think we would like to have our chair and vice chair at this meeting to make sure that we get it right. That's my opinion. Well, no, I mean, I think it, and well, considering both of them speak for more than 5 minutes.
Just in competition, that's, equal airtime.
We try to break it up.
Yeah.
You got us.
I'm sure KB would rather it be just on the regular meeting date herself, huh?
Are we keeping the May 2nd meeting? Even though,
We had not been anticipating, but we haven't actually thought through that.
so maybe that's a way to do it, is we
Um,
keep that meeting, but you get it, you
Yeah,
work.
I'm afraid I will be out of town on May 2nd. So,
Oh, there we go.
yeah.
We can do this
Then it-
without you.
then it is what it is.
Or somebody can go help my mother-in-law move. It's really, I'm fine with that.
Well, then I think
so-
the answer is you keep the schedule that we looked at this evening. We thought we were gonna get through it. I think it's been a great deliberative body and respectful of what we're trying to do for the city, and it'll be what it's gonna be.
And are we good meeting on the 18th? Yeah, okay, let's keep the 18th because while it's not perfect, at least everybody can consider and weigh and harmonize comments, and that's really valuable. Okay, so we're on for the 18th.
So now we need a chair for the 18th.
We have 2 volunteers.
We're looking at that end of the room, Jeremy.
Yeah, we need a chair and a vice chair, right? Perfect.
All right, it'll be a fast meeting then.
Get 30 seconds each.
Lisa and I will zoom in. We'll zoom in.
Uh-huh.
You're both on vacation. Can you think?
I can.
Okay, now for the second half of the meeting.
To just clarify, Tom Donnelly's gonna be running the meeting on the 18th, or Edwin? Or both.
Both chairs.
So,
Get hit by a bus on your bike.
it is far from the second half of the meeting, it's the last bit of the meeting, but we did want to talk a little bit about the town hall, make sure this meets your expectation. We may well still be on track for the 6th. We don't know. We'll know better after the 18th. What we're thinking about, as mentioned, is we do want to have the document out to the community 3 weeks in advance, and that seemed to meet your expectations. We're thinking about an afternoon and evening meeting. This has been effective in giving folks that don't have day jobs an opportunity in the afternoon, and then folks who work during the day to come in the evening. So 2 o'clock meeting, 6 o'clock meeting, similar format as we've done in the past, probably at DH White. We're hoping for a pretty good turnout. Pam, our city clerk, will help us get the word out. She's going to start promoting, and she's been very helpful at getting a good showing at our general plan meetings. So is all of that kind of meeting expectations? It would be one meeting, but we're going to really try to publicize and make the document available and do everything we can to get the community input. Is that fitting with your expectations?
Just an agenda for that. We're going to cover it right now.
General format is we would do introduction overview to the full room. Probably stop then, take questions and answers, have a dialogue. Then allow people to circulate to tables. We think land use, circulation, and economic development are the three elements that are of most interest to the community. So we'd have tables set up that people could cycle through. They could ask questions and comment cards at each of those tables, so they could leave comment cards there. Then kind of gather everybody back into their seats and go through a final question and answer. You know, you've learned some stuff and maybe you have some questions that have arisen, and that would be the general flow of the meeting. The goal is to provide enough information, but not be us talking to the community the whole time. As much as possible, have the community talking to us. So that's the general thought process.
So you mentioned these comment cards. When will they be reviewed? Will they be reviewed by you? Will they be reviewed by us? And then do we add some of these things to what we've already done so far?
We have to first filter them. So the staff will filter them and find out what we've got. It could be just a treasure trove of great comments. It could be very repetitive. It could be very straightforward. Maybe that we'll have to reconvene and talk about what we learned at the community meeting. You know, it's possible we'll be surprised and leave with, wow, we really need to dig into something. So I don't think I can say for certain where we go after this meeting. But keep in mind that we will have produced the public review draft, that 95% document. Now, this is one source of information that's going to help us get to that final adoption draft. If we need to get together as a body and go over it, we will.
Okay.
So those are our next steps. We're going to get together on the 18th now, and Nick and I and our team will be working on the comments that we have so far. And we'll also start to set up those final formatted documents, elements. So try to get a jump on that. And we'll see if we can keep to that deadline of May 15th completion and circulation. And that's a wrap from staff.
Anybody have anything else they want to throw out there? Okay, well, we're going to get out of here 2.5 hours early. The meeting's adjourned.
Great. The whole frame is.
I was gonna delete it, but I kept it on there just in case.
Let me see if I can show you one. Yeah, no, I get it. I think I have, we've already set up kind of the frame of it, so let me see. Okay. I'll take them. So, this is Edwin's? No, Waltz, okay, great.
No, we're going down.
Yeah, okay, so this is what it's eventually called.
Not just.